Hello, Lana. I'm glad that you are able to join me for our today's lesson. We are going to have a lesson in history and government, that is Form 2. We are learning or we are studying the social, economic, political, and political organization of the African societies by the 17th the 19th century. That is what we are learning. It's a Form 2 work topic. And in our today's lesson, we are going to be learning about the social organization. The social organization of the Baganda. The social organization of the Baganda. That is what we are going to be learning in our today's lesson. The social organization of the Baganda people. And as we learned, my dear learner, in our previous lesson, is that Baganda or the Buganda Kingdom emerged from between the 14th to the 19th century, right? That is when the Baganda Kingdom began to arise, but it reached its height or the height of its existence during the 19th century, and we learned about the different factors that contributed to the development or the growth of the kingdom of the Buganda Kingdom. Can you remember the factors that we gave? Yes, very good. We gave several factors that included the cohesiveness of the society, the existence of strong leaders. They had a very strong standing army that protected and conquered new states. And we also looked, we learned that it was necessitated by the decline of the Bunyoro-Kitara Kingdom, among many other factors that we discussed in our previous lesson. So if you had not accessed that lesson, you could check on our website. We still have the lessons running. So today we are going to look at the social organization of the Baganda after they had settled and they continued to rule. How was their social organization? And when we talk of social organization, we are referring to the way of belief of a people. Social organization includes the culture of the people. Social organization includes how do people relate with one another. Do they have belief in the supernatural? If so, how do they, or what are their beliefs? That is what we are going to be discussing in our lesson today. So to start us off, the first thing we are learning is that the Baganda or the social fabric, the existence of the society was centered. It was centered around Kabaka. It was centered around Kabaka. Kabaka was the center of life. Everything revolved on Kabaka. Kabaka was the overall leader. In our lesson, we learned that the Baganda community or the Baganda society was a centralized kind of society. So it was centered around Kabaka, who was considered to be, they considered him to be semi-divine. He was considered to be semi-divine. That means he was human, but also had a divine nature. He was revered. So Kabaka was the center of everything. He had he had powers to control everything. So he was the custodian of all the traditions. Most of the traditions in the society or in the Baganda society were centered around Kabaka. He was the one who presided most of the traditions or most of the ceremonies in the kingdom. So Kabaka was the center. Everything else flew from Kabaka because he was the one who was leading. He was like the nerve center. He was the heartbeat. He was the heart of the people of Buganda. That is what we mean, or that is the most essential point to note, that the life of the people of Buganda was centered around Kabaka. That is one. Another one, another point that we need to learn, my dear learner, is they were polygamous. They practiced polygamy. They were polygamous in nature. Polygamy is the practice of having several wives or many wives. Many wives. People were allowed to marry more than one wife. The opposite of polygamy is what we call monogamy. Monogamy. This is where you only have to marry one wife. But in the Baganda Kingdom, people were allowed to marry many wives. And what was the reason for that? It was to enhance unity and cohesion. So if you have married many wives, or you have different wives from different families, that means you are able to associate with those families at a good level, because they become your in-laws. So polygamy was encouraged to make sure that people are living in harmony with one another. So you will find out that the most people were related to each other. Now, no one could be able to fight against somebody whom you cannot fight against the family from which you have married. So as a man, you have your wife from this family. You also have several wives. Let's say you have around 3 wives. So 2 you will get from another family. So that means your family will be, or the people, your kin, will be able to interact and have cordial social relations with other families. That's happened from one family to the other. On matters concerning polygamy, Kabaka married from every clan in the society. Kabaka married from every clan in the society. What was the purpose for it? Is to ensure that every clan belonged to the kingdom. We have said Kabaka was the central nervous system. He was like the heartbeat of the community. So if the king marries from every clan, right? Every clan had a say or had a part in the kingdom, because their daughter is married to the Kabaka. So these ensured that there was unity. These ensured that people loved each other, because every person or every clan has a representative in the royal family, right? So that is about marriage. So this was very significant in ensuring that the people were living in peace. Also, they had a traditional religion. They had a traditional religion that was referred to as Lubale. They had a traditional religion. This is their way of worship. It was known as Lubale. They had a supreme god. They had a supreme a supreme god. They had a supreme god whom they referred to as Katonda. Katonda. So their god was referred to as Katonda. Every male member of that society, let's say the male member who leads a family, would pray to this god every morning. So they were very religious people. You can imagine it was their custom that the head of the family was supposed to pray to Katonda each and every morning. So the way they worshipped Katonda was based on their Dubale religion. Apart from having a supreme god, they believed in other gods. They believed in other gods or smaller gods and spirits. They believed in smaller gods and spirits who were referred to as Balubale. Balubale, right? They believed in smaller or other gods that were known as Balubale. So these are spirits, or they believed that these gods are people who had supernatural powers while they were living, and when they died, they continued to pay homage or respect to them. So these Balubales were worshipped. They were worshipped. When we are talking of these Balubales, they were worshipped. They were worshipped through mediums. These Balubales were worshipped through mediums. So the way to get to Balubale was through a medium. So a medium would be able to take someone or enhance them or lead them to Balubale. Or these Balubales are people who have, or spirits that have supernatural powers. So this shows that the Baganda people were very religious. They were very superstitious. They had a way of worship, and we said that brought together or considered together is a religion that was known as Balubale. Now, apart from that, we can say that the society was divided into clans, or was divided into classes. Society was divided into classes. They had a stratified society. They had classes. The highest class was the royal class, who was also referred to as the ruling class. This is where Kabaka and the family, or his family, was. Remember, we said Kabaka married from every clan in the society. So Kabaka, together with his family, formed the highest class. After them, we had the chiefs. So after Kabaka, and we are going to look at this when we discuss the political organization, there were several chiefs. The kingdom was divided into smaller divisions that we are going to refer to them as sazas as we discuss the political organization, but I do not want to bring that up now. So they had chiefs. So these chiefs together formed the second tier, or the second class of citizens in that land. Also, we had another group that were known as the peasants. These were the commoners, right? These were the common people. They were referred to as the Bakopi. These were the normal, or the general public, right? The peasants. And then lastly, we had the slaves. The slaves formed the lowest class. the lowest class was for the slaves, who are referred to as the Badu. The Badu. Right? The Badu. So the slaves were gotten during raids. So when we said that one factor that led to the development of the Baganda Kingdom was they had a very strong army. So when they went and conquered other states, right, they would come with slaves, mostly women and young men, to come and work out their farms. So these slaves formed the lowest class that was known as the Badu. And then the next thing that we are going to mention is that labor was divided. They had division of labor among women and men. So the men were engaged in clearing of land, clearing and building, right? And then the women were planting. After the men had cleared the land, the women would dig and plant and harvest and then maintain the homesteads. So that was the work of the women. So the division of labor enabled them to have structures. So the men, while the men are clearing the land, the women are digging and planting. And then after planting, the women were involved in harvesting. On the other side, the men were also involved in building of houses and also engaging in iron working. That was another thing, iron working, and also fishing in the lake. That was their work. They were also engaged in fishing in the lake. That was the work of the men. They had to work, and each person was encouraged to work, and the work was divided amongst them. So that is division. So another thing that we have to mention, where were they worshipping from? So they had shrines. They worshipped in shrines. A shrine is a specific place of worship. Today, people go to worship in churches, people go to worship in mosques, people go to worship in temples. But at that time, there were no temples, there were no physical buildings that we are having elaborate. Today we have very elaborate buildings. People have built very beautiful, very attractive churches, very attractive mosques, right? But at that time, the Baganda were worshipping in shrines. These were huts or clearings, right, where people could go and worship. And this is the places where the mediums were living or offering, were living and leading the people to worship. They were also in terms of their worship, they were offering sacrifices. They were offering sacrifices to God and the spirits to appease them. So they also engaged in offering of sacrifices. Another point that I would want to mention is that the Baganda believed in life after death. They believed in life after death. How is that so? They believe that once a person has died, right, their life continues. They cease to exist on this physical world, but they continue to live in the afterlife. There is life after death. So they had rituals to show that they believed that a person has not has just physically died, but he continues to to live. That's why they preserved. That's why they preserved. Let me write it here. They preserved the umbilical cord and the jawbones. The jawbone of Kabaka. So every Kabaka that had ruled in the kingdom of Buganda, their umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is that cord that connects a born child to the mother, right? I'm sure you have learned that in your biology. So they preserved this cord as a form of remembrance, and the jawbones, the jawbones were also preserved. Those of the Kabaka, they were preserved so that they could be remembered by them. They were kept in shrines or in special places. The biggest one was in front of the king's palace, so that they could remember their leaders through these umbilical cords. And then apart from them preserving and them believing in life after death, giving sacrifices because of their religion and their beliefs, these somewhat changed in the second part or towards the end of the 19th century. So in the second or towards the end of the 19th century, Baganda or the Baganda Kingdom was exposed to other parts of the world. So they were engaging in the long distance trade, and we are going to discuss that in more detail when we look at the economic organization. So when they were engaging in this organization, there were foreigners that came into the land. The first one was the Islam. So there was introduction of Islam in the kingdom of Buganda. Traditionally, I said their religion was the Lubale religion, right? And they believed in Katonda. But now, towards the second part or towards the end of the 19th century, right, Islam was introduced in the Baganda Kingdom. And how did it come? It came through the Swahili traders, Swahili and Arab traders. Swahili and the Arab traders during the long distance trade. So during that trade, Islam was introduced into the Baganda Kingdom, and now it became part of their life. Some of the people were converted into Islam. Also, there was introduction of Christianity. There was introduction of Christianity. There was this man, Sir Henry Morton, yes? Stanley Morton, right? We had Sir Henry Stanley introduced. He came and encouraged or convinced the Kabaka at that time, who was Kabaka Mutesa I, to accept the Christian missionary. So Christianity now became part of the life of the Baganda people. Now, there were three kinds of activities, religious activities in that kingdom. We had the traditionalists. Now there was introduction of the Islam, and then the Christianity was also became part of their lives. So that is just a nutshell or an overview of how the Baganda were organized in their social life. We said Kabaka was the center. That was the first and the biggest point that we made. Kabaka was the center. He was the nerve center. He was like the heartbeat of the nation. Some people say that he was the center of everything. Everybody revered him. And also there was practicing of polygamy. We have mentioned that, and we have said the importance of that. And then Kabaka also married from each and every clan. And then we have looked at the traditional worship and how they were worshipping. And then we said the society was divided into classes, 4 classes: the ruling class, the chiefs, and then we also had the peasants, who are known as the Bakopi. Right? That's the new term that you have learned, the Bakopi, who are the peasants. And then the last group of people, or the last class of people, were the Badu, right? Who are the slaves in the community. And then we have mentioned that towards the end of the 19th century, there was introduction of Islam and also Christianity. So that is all that we can discuss about the social organization of the Baganda. So, my dear Lana, if I give you a question now, I'm sure you are able, a question concerning the social organization of the Baganda, I'm sure you are able to effectively discuss and effectively answer. So, this is the question that I give you as we end our lesson today. Name the supreme god among the Baganda. Number 1, why was it important for Kabaka to marry from every tribe? And then number 2, describe the social organization of the Baganda. And then lastly, name the supreme god among the Baganda. How did they refer to their god? And that brings us to the end of our lesson, our history, our Form 2 history and government lesson today. I've been your teacher, Conan Gakure. Bye-bye.